With the launch of Tarkov 1.0, we have some new ammo, and there are broadly 3 groupings that have been added to the game. So let's start off first and look at the Marlin MXLR 308ME lever action rifle, which if you haven't seen, this is the lever action that's been teased in the game for quite a long time. And this is chambered in 308ME Marlin Express, so it's its own very special version. You can't put 7.62x51 in here, and currently you can buy this gun and its ammo on Jaeger 2. So if we go over to Jaeger 2, we can see that we can actually buy the gun itself over here, and then the ammunition, we have these 2 bullets here. We have 308ME LOKT, and we have 308ME. So the difference between these two, this one is the soft point version, as you can see from the stats, 96 damage and 24 penetration, and the 308ME is the regular version, which is actually good, which is 80 damage and 42 pen. So first off, those who've been playing Tarkov for a while will know that 24 pen isn't really that good. It kind of struggles with class 3 armors. If you multiply the armor class by 10, that roughly gets you in the ballpark that you need to be in penetration to get through. So against a class 3 armor, you'd want about 30 penetration. You can get away with a little bit less, but 24 is just a bit too low. You have to shoot them 2 or 3 times before you're going to go through. 96 damage might seem appealing, but I'm going to show you now why that's probably a mistake. So we've got up here Tarkov Gunsmith. This hasn't been updated yet. None of the websites have really been updated properly for the new bullets yet, because they still need to grab the data and all of that kind of stuff. But the great thing about Tarkov Gunsmith is that you can put these things in manually. You can custom build your own cartridge in here, which means we can put in 24 pen and 96 damage. Now against a class 4 armor with a class 2 soft underlayer underneath it, 24 pen doesn't stand a chance of going through at all on the first shot, which is probably to be expected. We actually don't know what the armor damage percentage is of this new bullet yet, but assuming it's something like 40%, it's going to take you a lot of shots to go through and actually kill them. Something like the 9th or the 10th hit. So against heavily armored targets, the soft point ammo is not a good idea. But you might be tempted to take it for the 96 damage, and that might go through Packers and things like that. Well, I do have something to show you, which is that with the Packer, class 2, so any of the class 2 armors, something like the Module 3M, or the Flora, or the Packer itself, despite the fact that at 24 pen, you have a 96% chance of going through, you actually only deal 72 damage because of damage mitigation. So this 96 damage doesn't get dealt directly to the player, it goes through the armor, loses some of its energy, and it goes down to 72. And this is important because in Tarkov, our Thorax has 85 HP, and this is the thing that you need to 0 in order to kill somebody. Obviously, you can get them down to 0 from their total HP pool, but getting the head blacked or the thorax blacked will kill somebody instantly without you having to take down the rest of their health. So the fact that a single shot, even through a class 2 armor, does not do this to a player is kind of a bad sign. One thing that is curious about this bullet is that it is available at Jaeger level 2, but so is the other one. And there does seem to be a bit of a bug at the moment with 308ME LOKT, which fortunately is the one that we don't want to buy, in that you can currently only buy 6. I don't really know why. I think this must be just a little oversight. The BSG maybe tried to add 600 or something and someone put in the wrong number. I don't really know. So the other one that you can buy, and this is the one that you definitely should get, is 308ME. This is quite a lot more expensive. You can buy 96 of this if you have EOD, and that is 52,000 rubles. But given it's going in a lever action, not going to be firing that many rounds. And with 80 damage and 42 pen, this is much more respectable. This is much closer to something like M80 in 7.62x51 that the DMRs use. And this will take down most players in 2 shots. Let's move to our third simulation here, and this is 308ME itself with 80 damage and 42 pen, and going through a 6B33 ballistic plate and the class 2 underlay on it has basically a 90% chance of going through, and if it does so, it will deal 64 damage. So yeah, it won't kill in one hit, but through class 4 armor, it's a 2-shot to kill, which is really important. About the ammos themselves, with a bullet velocity of 838 meters per second, that actually is pretty quick, and I wouldn't worry about these other stats at all. Minus 2% accuracy really has like no bearing on this weapon whatsoever. If you go and look at the Marlin itself, this thing actually has a really good MOA of 1.33 out of the gate. So 2% on this is something tiny, it's something minuscule. We're talking 0.02 or 0.03, something like that. It really has no effect on the weapon whatsoever. So I'm going to be giving this weapon a go. It looks pretty fun. I think the most important thing about the Marlin that we need to test is the fact that it comes under bolt action rifles, so it may well count for Shooterborn in Heaven. Unfortunately, all the parts for it are on Mechanic 2, so I'm not quite there yet, but once I am, I'm going to use this thing in its ergo configuration, see whether we can make it quite snappy. And this actually could be a new way to do Shooterborn in Heaven, which would be really good because it's one of the most painful quests that I just don't do anymore because I hate doing it. So next up, we have the rounds in the 9.3x64. Now, I don't have any of these yet, so we're going to have to look at these through the handbook. And there appears to be 3 different sets of bullets you can get for this SP, FMJ, and 7N33. And these are all for the new TKPD, which is a little bit like an SVD. Apparently it was from Contract Wars, a gun that they've put into the game now. And this thing looks absolutely fearsome. Even the SP ammo has 129 damage and 37 penetration. So 37 pen is pretty good. For reference, it's on the 50-50 threshold for going through class 4 on the first hit. So the only issue here is that against class 4 helmets, 50% of the time it's just going to bounce off, which is kind of annoying and not really what you want from a sort of DMR-y long range type weapon like this. However, the saving grace is the fact that you get 129 damage. When we stick this through the damage calculator, there's this classic waterfall effect that we see on the way that pen works, especially ones that are around the sort of 50-50 threshold. So we've got 37 pen, 129 damage, and this goes through a 6B33 front ballistic plate at class 4. There was a lot of damage reduction applied here, so rather than hitting 129, it follows through with 91.4. Now the issue here is that there is a piece of class 2 armor behind. Not only does the damage drop off, but the penetration also drops off for the next piece of armor that it goes through. And we can see here that the pen moves from 37 down to 26. And the unfortunate thing about it going to 26 is it's in range for damage reduction now for the class 2 armor. It wasn't before, but after going through the class 4 armor, it now is. And so this 91.4 gets worked on a second time by the next layer and ends up at 75. So unfortunately, although it looks like this thing at 129 damage with 37 pen should cleanly go through at class 4 and kill a player, I actually don't think it's going to because of this waterfall effect of the damage reduction, firstly through the class 4 layer and then secondly through the class 2. The other part to bear in mind is that especially if you're at longer ranges, there's damage drop off for distance as well, and so even if you're 100 meters away or something, you can actually get this penetration to drop below the 50-50 threshold quite significantly, and for a headshot against the class 4 helmet, this can make a big difference. I should mention that this bullet is available on Prapor 3, so these are a lot higher tier than the ones we looked at before for the Marlin. So let's move on to FMJ. This is the next round up, and this one is significantly better. It unlocks on Prapor after a quest, but I don't know at what level, and I'm not sure what the quest is yet because it's too early days to say. But this one has 115 damage and 44 pen, which is much more respectable, deals with class 4 armor much more easily. This is almost a guaranteed pen, and a subsequent reduction in the amount of drop off for damage and penetration as it goes through. Moving back to our chart, we've modeled this guy in here, and it's pretty much a 93% chance to get through, combining these two layers together, and the penetrated damage goes through the first layer at 97, and because the pen is still so high, it's 37, the class 2 armor underneath doesn't do anything, and it ends up at 97 as well. So this will actually one-shot through class 4 armor to the chest if you get hold of it. This guy also has an accuracy bonus of 15%, although I don't think this is going to matter here either, because 15% does sound a bit more meaningful, but this weapon starts with 1.2 MOA, so it's still kind of around the fringe. We're only talking about 0.1 of an MOA or something. The final round in this category is this new 7N33. This has 108 damage, so still pretty high, but with 56 penetration. This thing is an absolute beast, because 56 penetration is the 50-50 threshold for going through class 6, which is really, really rare, and it's guaranteed to go through class 5 pretty much. We're talking 95% or something. It only loses a little bit of its 108 damage down to 97, and then it just sails through the underlay straight away. Now against class 6, it is slightly different because it will lose a lot more damage through class 6. This actually ends up taking it to 83.5, around 45% of the time. And so technically, according to the calculation, this won't one-shot a class 6 armor. But it is so close to the threshold that I actually don't feel comfortable stating that, and I'd want to go and test this before trying it. This guy is understandably found in road only, which is probably a good thing, because this bullet is absolutely terrifying. This is like an SVD on crack. If you do find any 7N33, keep it. There might be a quest for the TKPD later, and even if you do this in the late game, most people are going to be wearing class 5, and you've got to one-shot them if you hit them in the thorax, which is absolutely awful. The third set of new rounds for the release patch are actually for the 7.62x25mm TT category, which is quite curious. These ones that go in the TT pistol, they also go in the PPSH, which is the full auto 1000 RPM SMG style weapon that can take a really large drum magazine. And here we have effectively a 5.56 bullet rammed into the end of a 7.62x25mm cartridge, which is kind of wild. And we have all three variants. We have M856A1, we have the M855A1, and the M995, with damages ranging from 36 down to 32 for M995, and pens going from 27 for 56A1 up to 37 for M995. So technically this one is the best bullet because the pen is 37, but you will note that the damage is actually too low to hit a headshot on all of these things except for M856A1, and then with the damage drop off, this probably goes below 35 very, very quickly. I'm not exactly sure what these are used for yet. It does appear that you can buy the 55A1 and M856A1 from Mechanic, but the pen and the damage is just so low on these cartridges, I just think it's going to be hard to kill anybody with them. The pen is sort of too low to be useful against against class 4, except for the M995 one, and then you can't one-tap somebody with that anyway, and because of the damage mitigation around 37 pen, if you catch somebody with class 4 on, you're still going to have to shoot them 7 or 8 times to take them down. One part that is really curious about these bullets is their bullet velocity. This is extremely high, 940 meters per second, and 900 meters per second for the other two. Is way quicker than any of the other bullets that you have for this particular caliber. Usually we're around 385, 375, 427, something like that. So these are going to come out of the PPSH or the TT pistol way quicker than they would with these other rounds. For this particular caliber and these selections of weapons, you're not really doing any long range shooting, so it doesn't matter that much. But do bear in mind that over any kind of meaningful distance, these will shoot really, really high because the PPSH or the TT is going to be zeroed for a much slower bullet, and these come out way quicker. So the bullet drop is accounted for a bullet that drops more, and because these don't drop as much, it'll actually shoot over your iron sights if you're firing over like 50 meters plus, for example. Again, this doesn't matter too much for things like the PPSH or the TT because you're usually engaging people at close range anyway, but it's just something to bear in mind. The other thing that I've seen is these ammo packs for 50 BMG lying around the map. I saw a pack of these, the 50 BMG M33s the other day, which is 190 damage and 56 pence. This thing is crazy, but these bullets were around last wipe and they can only go into the AK-50, so it's a very, very specialist gun, one that you're probably not ever going to see in raid. So I hope your wipe's going well so far. I'm going to get back to being live for day 3, so as usual, big shout out to all my patrons, and as always, have fun in your raids.